In 2001, Neil Farrell purchased a beautiful restaurant in the countryside of the Lake District, a national and international tourist hotspot. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare, and 3 years on, he's wishing he was anywhere else. The Glass House is a restaurant in trouble, and Neil has called Gordon in to help him control the chaotic kitchen with its questionable hygiene standards.
This kitchen is filthy, straight from the dirty floor into the pesto.
He's stopped answering the phone because the business is losing money fast, and he can't cope with the constant creditor calls. And he doesn't seem able to have difficult conversations with his staff, leaving them for someone else to deal with.
Don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I mean don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah, go on.
Last night you had bad breath.
Chef Ramsay begins in the kitchen. The head chef, Richard Collins, is the same age as Gordon and trained at Claridges before Ramsay's time there. Gordon asks Richard what's wrong with the restaurant, and he says he's asked himself that question many times and has started worrying that he might not be up to the job. There is no communication in the kitchen, and when Richard calls out orders, he's met with silence. Ramsay wants to taste the food and begins with duck cakes with a chili jam. While Richard is proud of the dish, Gordon thinks it's pretentious, and is unimpressed when one of the unattractive balls comes complete with a bone. Next, he tries the braised lamb shank with parsnip crisps. Again, he feels it's the work of a lazy chef, as he can smell that the frying oil hasn't been changed in weeks. For 30 pounds, the meal just isn't up to scratch. Gordon heads to the kitchen and tells the team he's disappointed in his meal. It's time to get his chef's jacket on and get down to business. Richard's team is inexperienced but keen. Junior chef Iain was previously a server, and part-time second chef Claire owns a bookshop and helps out because Iain is her boyfriend. They are supported by another catering college student, Craig, and a kitchen porter. It's a busy night during the school holidays, and there are 106 customers expected. Gordon has been warned that the kitchen collapses under any pressure, and it isn't long before he witnesses the problem himself. Plates are returned because of fatty meat that hasn't been trimmed, and there's confusion about where plates are going. Neil is frustrated, and once again wishes he could get out of the business. Ramsay has seen enough and asks Richard what went wrong. He admits he's not using the other members of the kitchen team efficiently, but says it's the same chaos every Saturday night. A worn-out Neil wonders how other restaurateurs running subpar restaurants don't care and seem to thrive while he's in pieces.
And the owners are driving around in bloody Porsches. I'm driving a shitty Astra van and I'm fucking close to tears.
Gordon tells Richard that the kitchen is the engine room of any restaurant. The head chef questions Craig about the chaotic service and is suddenly brought to tears by the pressure. Craig follows him and apologizes. Ramsay feels he's hit rock bottom. The next morning, it's time to tackle the kitchen hygiene. Before his visit, Ramsay has sent in an undercover chef from Claridges wearing a hidden camera to find out the truth about the standards. The footage is alarming, with aging ingredients kept in plastic buckets and equipment stored on the dirty floor, then used in the sauces. Gordon wants the kitchen spotless before he starts work and gets hands-on with the greasy surfaces. The team tells him they don't have time to do a weekly clean down, which he doesn't believe. The blame falls on Richard, who should be motivating and inspiring his team to have higher standards. With the walls and ceilings scrubbed down, it's time for a lick of white paint. The kitchen team gets decorating, leaving Gordon to speak to Neil about the next steps. One of the issues the Glass House is facing is that it's over busy on Saturday nights and empty the rest of the week. That could be because visitors to the area walk past it without knowing it's even there. Ramsay wants the beautiful building properly signposted with clear signage and attractive lighting at night. The menu is next to go under the microscope. Gordon asks Richard to explain how garlic popcorn made its way onto the menu, and he explains that vegetarian customers were looking for something with some texture.
They've got no palate. What are you worrying about a vegetarian for?
Yes!
For God's sake, vegetarianism is on the decline.
Chef Ramsay has put together a 2-course lunch menu to tempt customers through the door. The existing lunch options are sandwiches, and Neil is concerned about losing the revenue from his more basic daily staples. Gordon says he has no problem serving sandwiches, and serves lobster rolls at his own restaurants. He suggests an open mackerel sandwich, and is keen to teach them how to prepare it. Ramsay encourages Craig to sample what he's making, in order to improve as a chef. and feels that Iain may have what it takes to progress in a professional kitchen, despite having some bad habits. But he is most impressed by part-timer Claire and tells her she's a very good cook. She doesn't seem so sure. The team sits down to enjoy the new sandwich together. Gordon asks the chefs what's not working in the kitchen, something the head chef has never done. They are all finding a lack of communication difficult and think it makes their jobs harder. Neil agrees to the new lunch menu, and the customers are loving the fresh and rustic new dishes. In the kitchen, there is more chatter between the team and more positive energy, but Richard is not interacting with them. After service, Neil tells Gordon that Richard is realizing how poor his management skills are, as he's watched Chef Ramsay encourage his team and their positive response. It's time for Richard to step up and do the same. Gordon then talks to the front of house team and encourages them to push the a la carte menu, which is more profitable for the business than the cheaper early supper menu. When a table arrives early, Neil offers them the cheaper menu, which Gordon thinks is a mistake. He also believes that Neil should be letting the servers take orders while he pushes the wine list, another possible profit booster. Neil is still struggling with getting tough with Richard, who Ramsay feels isn't up to scratch. He gives the head chef the night off and hopes to prove that the kitchen team is capable of running the service without him. Instead, he wants Richard to have a dinner in the restaurant with Neil, and he doesn't want the team to know who they are cooking for. Gordon gathers the young team and hands out their responsibilities for the evening. He gets Iain to control the pre-service team meeting, which runs smoothly, and they jump into action. The guests of honor arrive and are seated in the dining room. Their starters go out, and Neil is impressed. Claire takes control of the main courses being sent, and Chef Ramsay watches on, delighted that the service is running so smoothly under her watchful eye. Upstairs, Neil asks Richard whether he's going to be able to replicate the atmosphere that Gordon has created. The head chef admits that he's scared that he can't keep up the standards Ramsay has set, but he's determined to try. The service has gone smoothly without Richard's help, and each of the chefs has taken more responsibility. Neil and Richard make a surprise appearance in the kitchen and seem genuinely delighted with the meal they enjoyed. Richard is keen to claim some of the success for himself.
Fucking sex on a plate, guys. Remember, you're my boys, my girls.
He's determined that Claire should be a full-time part of the team, and puts pressure on her to make a decision in the next 48 hours about leaving her bookshop. But he's not evolving himself, and Gordon thinks that the high wage that Neil is paying him is currently going to waste. Ramsay wouldn't put him back in the kitchen, but Neil stands by his head chef. They're getting ready to relaunch the menu, and need to cut it down and lower the prices. With almost 90 dishes, it needs to be significantly reduced. And some of the quirky wording needs to be changed too, particularly the description of the chips.
You're the only restaurant I've ever come across that writes frozen but lovely.
Gordon is introducing a local lamb shank, which Claire is learning to braise, and Craig is put in charge of a Bailey's bread and butter pudding. Iain is putting together a classic Caesar salad with a warm poached egg. They're ready to go. With 70 local guests booked for the evening service, Richard takes charge of the kitchen team, and Gordon takes charge of Richard. He has created dishes that can be put together in advance to minimize the risk of mistakes, and that use low-cost ingredients to maximize profit. Richard seems to approve. Neil is nervous because the dining room is beginning to fill up with local journalists and B&B owners. But he's ready for action and decides to switch his mobile phone back on. As the first orders come in, Richard calls them out, but the team can't hear as the porter is tipping out a drawer of cutlery. Gordon raises his voice for the first time this visit. Upstairs, the food is going down well, and all the team has to do is reheat plates and dress salads. But Iain forgets to dress a salad, and Richard forgets to check it, so the mistake makes its way to the table. As the pressure mounts, Richard's voice gets louder, but that doesn't mean he's actually communicating with the team. Diners are waiting too long, and the chaos is beginning to break out again. Neil is furious and threatens to fire staff if they can't keep up. But he doesn't tell the staff that, and instead complains that the dressing on the salad is too rich. Now it's Gordon's turn to get angry.
That is fresh salad, beautifully washed, and I haven't even put my hands in it to dress it. I've let it dress itself in the bowl. So what you're telling me is absolute bollocks.
Neil asks Gordon to lower his voice in the restaurant. Ramsay is now even more angry that the owner won't stand up to his £25,000-a-year failing chef who can't organize or control the kitchen, but will stand up to a successful celebrity chef. On the final morning of his visit, Gordon takes time to chat with the young chefs. He praises trainee Craig's progress throughout the week and is concerned but unimpressed that the kitchen porter has been so adrenaline-fueled that he has hardly slept. Ramsay tells Iain he has a natural touch with food and calls part-time chef Claire's strength inspirational. And he's been an inspiration to her. She's decided to sell her shop and commit to the kitchen.
Gordon Ramsay thinks I'm a really good chef. Oh my God.
Finally, he speaks to Richard, who tells Gordon that Neil gave him 3 options: to leave, to stay with a pay cut, or to work harder. Neil says he will give him a month. 3 months later, Gordon makes his way through the snow to see how things have changed. Owner Neil looks relaxed and happy, and downstairs, head chef Richard is waiting for him. And so are the plastic containers. Richard has been developing the menu and tells Gordon about his new creation, pomegranate risotto, which Ramsay thinks sounds disgusting. Craig is busy making puff pastry, and Iain is whipping up a toffee fruit crumble. Ramsay still thinks Iain has talent, so much so that he would be prepared to have him on any one of his kitchen teams, along with his girlfriend Claire. Unfortunately, Claire was unable to sell her bookshop, so is still just helping out at weekends. Gordon sits down to try the food, and Neil shares that he struggled to pay the staff at times, but now feels more confident. Thanks to Chef Ramsay's delicious new dishes, turnover is up 20% and continues to rise, and the restaurant's reputation is improving. Gordon is hopeful that the restaurant will stay open, though he's not convinced that the strange pomegranate risotto concoction will help that happen. Gordon and his team filmed for 42 hours across a week-long period in the autumn of 2003, and the original episode aired as part of the first series in May 2004. It wasn't an entirely pleasant experience for owner Neil Farrell, who described the week as an emotional roller coaster, and admitted he couldn't wait for Ramsay to leave. Neil had seen an advert for a new troubleshooting program for restaurants, and had signed the contract before hearing that it was going to be called Kitchen Nightmares. He felt the criticisms of the restaurant weren't completely fair, and that the producers had already decided what the problems were before Gordon arrived. And that's entirely possible, because unusually for a British nightmare, an undercover chef had been in the building weeks earlier, feeding back footage that revealed the restaurant's problems. Neil and Gordon almost came to blows over a Caesar salad, which was one of the very few times that Ramsay lost his temper during the visit, and he really did lose his temper. But Neil wasn't scared. He revealed that he had managed chefs for years and had been attacked before, so would have been prepared to hit back if Gordon had gotten physical. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Instead, the only impact was positive. The website had 182,000 hits, which was a big deal in 2004, and bookings increased by 50%. Even Richard was happy. He shrugged off Gordon's negative comments about his laziness, low hygiene standards, and poor management skills, and morale actually improved as he cooked for visitors who flooded into the restaurant from across the UK to sample its food. And yes, that includes his more creative dishes like pomegranate risotto, which was regularly requested and eventually made it back onto the menu. When producers got in touch with Neil asking the Glass House to host Gordon for a revisit at the end of 2004, he was happy to take part, and looked forward to even more great publicity. The owner and head chef both felt more confident about handling Gordon the second time around. In June 2005, the revisited episode shows Chef Ramsay's return to the Lake District, and he is delighted to see much better signage showing the way to the Glass House.
Now I'm back. But is it just the signs that have changed? Hello. Where is he?
Neil is once again looking relaxed and happy. He's slashed prices and is enjoying chatting to his customers. But how is the food, and who is cooking it? Richard is still running the kitchen, and Gordon is pleased to see second chef Claire, who has now sold her bookshop and is working full-time. Iain has been promoted and runs his own section, but trainee Craig has moved on to another job.
Oh, kitchen smells nice. Food.
Ramsay gets the chef's jacket on and is ready to help out. He offers to be Richard's commie chef and is pleased to be ordered around. But things soon start to go wrong when the risotto doesn't cook properly and it has to be started from scratch, causing a 10-minute delay. At least there is some quality control happening, as the mistake didn't leave the kitchen. Richard is communicating with everyone well, except Gordon. He finally comes up with a job for him, peeling carrots. Customers are happy, and visitor numbers are up by 30%, even though the prices have dropped considerably. Takings are up 20% too. The kitchen team has come together and is now working well, but not for much longer. Iain and Claire are leaving the restaurant to progress their own careers in a top London kitchen, Gordon's. He apologizes to Richard for poaching his staff. Their replacement, Gareth, worked in security until 6 weeks previously, so the head chef will need to start again with the training program. Ramsay still isn't sure that Richard could run the kitchen successfully, but hopes for Neil's sake that he can. Neil has stopped dreaming of a Porsche, but did eventually trade in his old, basic van for a more luxurious pickup. Neil was nervous about the revisit episode because during filming, Gordon was, quote-unquote, playing up to the cameras. He was relieved that when the show aired, those scenes weren't included. By the time the revisited episode aired, there had already been some major changes to the team at the Glasshouse. In June 2004, young chefs Claire and Iain were excitedly preparing to start work in one of Gordon's restaurants. Claire in the luxurious Connaught Hotel, and Iain at Claridges. Claire had not only sold the bookshop, she had given up the distance learning bachelor's degree in English literature that she had been studying for as well. Despite receiving both Neil and Richard's blessing to head to London to gain professional experience, the loyal pair decided to travel there for just 1 day a week during the busy summer season. So they didn't leave the Glasshouse team short-staffed. When the summer was over, Claire joined the kitchen team with Gordon's protege, Angela Hartnett, at her menu restaurant within the hotel on a full-time basis. But after just a few weeks of working on the garnish section at Menu, she gave up her dream position, quitting her job due to personal reasons. And a few weeks after that, Iain quit his job as demi-chef de partie at Claridges too. He was apparently unhappy with the long hours culture. By the time the revisit aired in June 2005, they were long gone from Gordon's kitchens, which was disappointing for the many viewers who were excited about the huge opportunities they had been offered. And it was almost certainly a disappointment to Gordon himself, who regularly speaks about his time as a 19-year-old apprentice for celebrity chef Marco Pierre White, and how it set him up for career success. He genuinely seemed to be hoping the young chefs would learn and grow in the profession, under his watchful eye. Several years passed, and the Glasshouse remained open, with head chef Richard in the kitchen and Neil managing the front of house. By 2010, Neil was keeping the restaurant in the press, this time by allowing diners to only pay what they felt their meal was worth. While that's a risky concept for a business trying to make money, it drew in customers who enjoyed the relaxed atmosphere and seemed to have paid a reasonable amount. The Glasshouse only received one online review, which was left by a happy customer in January 2011. The visitors enjoyed the food and the setting, and commented on the friendliness of the staff. They gave the restaurant a 4 out of 5 rating. In November 2012, Richard left his job as head chef at the restaurant after over 14 years in the Glasshouse kitchen. And by 2014, the restaurant was in trouble. In March, the Glasshouse closed its doors for the last time, almost 10 years after the episode originally aired. The space was taken over almost immediately by another restaurant called the Fulling Mill. It had new signage, a new menu, a new chef, but a familiar owner, Neil. On the incorporation papers for the business, it looks like he has a new job title too, executive chef. The Fulling Mill received good reviews for the food it served. With at least a dozen appetizers to choose from, the menu had more than doubled. But Neil's new venture only managed to stay open until 2020. After the first few months of the pandemic, the lease was taken over by a group of businessmen looking to expand their portfolio by opening a pub in the historic building. Now known as the Flying Fleece, the venue is still open today. It receives mixed reviews and a 3.5 out of 5 TripAdvisor rating, with customers mainly commenting on a lack of atmosphere and disappointing customer service, though the food itself seems fine. But where are the staff from the episode today? We couldn't find an update on Neil, who lists his only employment on LinkedIn as owner of the Glass House. But we do have an update on head chef Richard, who left his job at the restaurant a couple of years before its closure. Richard wasn't a fan favorite, with many viewers finding his food description sleazy and his possessive tone when claiming the team's success as his own a little strange. He also received a fair amount of criticism for the way he aggressively approached Claire about selling her bookshop and working for him full-time. That could be why many viewers felt that Gordon took an instant dislike to Richard, and didn't attempt to hide it throughout his time there. When he left the Glass House, Richard took a role as a sales executive at Altham's Butchers, an independent family business providing premium meat products to restaurants. He stayed at the company for more than 12 years, and progressed to the position of regional sales manager during that time. In March 2021, it was time for a change, and Richard started his own business, Taco Chateau, which he still runs today. Offering Latin American street food at caravan parks and camping grounds around the Lake District, Richard's Taco Shacks offer quesadillas, wraps, and nachos, along with traditional British classics like fish and chips. We are glad to see that Gordon didn't scare Richard away from the kitchen for good, and wish him every success in the future. As for Iain, after leaving Claridges, he went to work at a local catering company, but we don't have any further updates on him after that. And Claire, the talented part-time chef that Gordon found inspirational and wanted on his staff. Well, she's no longer in the industry. In 2007, Claire had a beautiful baby boy who was profoundly deaf. As he grew, she felt increasingly isolated as a young mother of a child with additional needs. Claire found a new passion: play and communication with deaf children. To pursue her dream, she realized that she needed to return to education. Her journey started out in a nursery kitchen, but didn't last long. That's probably because her experience in Gordon's restaurant was hard to match. Instead, Claire became a nursery nurse. 2 years later, she achieved her early years qualifications and completed her British Sign Language training. She then spent several years working for the local council supporting deaf children before opening her own kids' music group franchise, Moo Music, which covered the area around her home near Liverpool. After a while, she became interested in sound healing and decided to train as a sound therapist, with a particular interest in supporting mothers and babies. She now runs her own studio called Mama Wellness, which offers baby yoga, mother and baby massage, and sound bath classes. From her online presence, Claire seems to be happy and healthy, and very much enjoying her chosen path, surrounded by like-minded friends. We wish everyone involved in the Glass House episode all the best for the future, and congratulate Neil on running one of the longest-serving Kitchen Nightmares transformations.